Hello, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'm David Hopper, Austin Bureau Chief of the music site 360degreesound.com. For nearly 6 years, we've been doing a series called Author Talk, where we interview authors of new music-related books. Today, I'm joined by James Campion, author of the new book Revolution: Prince, the Band, the Era. The book is out now on Backbeat Books, an imprint of Bloomsbury Publishing. James Campion is a columnist, essayist, and associate editor of the pop culture magazine The Aquarian Weekly. He's also the author of books on Kiss's Destroyer album, Warren Zevon, and the Beatles' Hey Jude. Campion's new book, Revolution, is a detailed exploration into Prince's most acclaimed and commercially successful era, the years with his backing band, The Revolution, which span from roughly 1982 to 1986. The book traces the story of Prince's humble beginnings to Prince and the Revolution's rise to becoming one of the biggest bands in the world, with hit singles, albums, films, and tours, and finally ending with the Revolution's breakup shortly after the Parade tour in October 1986. James, thanks so much for joining 360degreesound.com to talk about your new book.
You got it, David. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for reading it.
Of course. Well, the book is fascinating. It's well researched and journalistic, yet it reads like a novel. It's largely a chronological narrative. What if you could start by talking about why you chose to take the approach you did with the book?
Yeah, good noticing that. That's exactly what I did. I took it as a novelistic approach. It was inspired by my friend Rob Sheffield from Rolling Stone magazine. That's why he wrote the foreword. I asked him to write it because he was very inspirational in getting me to try something new. Normally, when I do books, I do all the research and interviews first. I kind of combine everything and then I start to write. And I let the story unfold. This time, I did a lot of research, but I started to write and I filled in where I could. So I loved almost, it was an exercise, creative exercise for me, and it was a new way to write. And I really enjoyed it a great deal. I may try it again, but I had never done it in this way before. So thanks for noticing that, David. It was a departure for me, and I think it very much does read like a novel.
Hmm. Certainly. Yeah, so, Prince is, I think, viewed by many as this, singular creative force. He plays all the instruments, he arranges, produces, but your book makes the case that, the band has been a key or was a key part of his art from the early days, and especially this time with the Revolution. I wonder if you could maybe talk about a few of the key reasons why you thought why having a band was so important to Prince.
Yeah, from the very beginning. I mean, he was named after a band, the Prince Rogers Trio, which was his dad's band. And he had his earliest bands in middle school and high school. He always loved that camaraderie. He always loved that collaboration. He always loved to hear different sounds coming at him, and he can parse that stuff so well. And even when he recorded his own stuff, I talk about him being a solitary entity in the book. For his first three or four albums, it's all him playing all the instruments, as you said, producing and arranging and performing. But even back then, he played each instrument as if he was part of a band. He would say, and I quote him in the book, when I went to play the bass part, I thought myself, I'm the bass player. I've got to distinguish myself here. I've got to add something to the song. I'm the drummer. I have to, I'm the guitar player. I have to lay down a tasty lick here to make the singer sound good. All those things sort of formulated how he thought anyway. But he always returned to having band members all the way back, like I said, to high school and then his early days in the trio with Bobby Z and Andre Simone, some of his original band members, all the way through the early incarnations. I call all the bands sort of Revolution, which is the title of the book. Of course, it becomes officially the Revolution by the time they get to Purple Rain, but all the way up until there, he's building this team, this family. And he had a tough family life when he was young, and he was able to choose the people around him he could trust, and that would reflect his music and his image and his theories about race and sexuality and religion. And they were a very tight-knit group, and you could see it right off the bat, David, when he would do his music videos. Because his very first music video for I Want to Be Your Lover is just him. And you see Warner's trying to sell just him. From that point forward, all the way through the revolution, there was always the band with him. Whenever he performed on TV, American Bandstand or the Midnight Special or Saturday Night Live, the band's right there with him. So he was different from a lot of his contemporaries like Madonna or Prince or excuse me, or Michael Jackson, who, had backing bands, people who just go on the tour, but these were people who were in Minneapolis with him, practicing and building an act and helping him write the songs. So it was fascinating to find that out.
Hmm. For sure. Yeah, I think maybe for people who aren't Prince big Prince fans or didn't grow up in the 80s during his peak, they may not be familiar with the members of the Revolution. I guess once officially became the Revolution. I wonder if you could maybe give us a little intro to each of those members and why Prince thought they were special.
Well, thank you again for bringing that up because I really wrote this book for people. I feel like the older I get, the younger people are when they're teenagers and in their early 20s. I talk to a lot of 20 somethings and they don't know how important Prince was, how big he was, how huge Purple Rain was, and how influential he was in getting black artists on MTV and creating this hybrid group of black, white, male, female, and writing about subjects that up until him were completely taboo. They were hinted at in a lot of rock and roll songs and funk and soul songs, and certainly played in the clubs for blues artists, but not on the radio, not in front of everybody the way he was a big pop star. And the people that he surrounded himself with were not only immensely talented, David, but they were young, late teens, early 20s, just like him. And he didn't want anybody that was like, hardened by the road or changed by a way of thinking. He built like this group. I call it a gang, or most importantly, a family. And his original members, Gail Chapman, who I spoke to for the book, she was the first female keyboard player, and he would continue to add keyboard players that were females for many years after that. Lisa Coleman replaced her, and she was almost like Prince's sister, his opposite member. She brought along Wendy Melvoin, who replaced Des Dickerson, the guitar player, who was interesting because he was a black artist, but he loved rock and roll and white music. So those great balances of everything. And then, like I said, Wendy came in to replace him, and then Andre Simone was a childhood friend of Prince's, and he left after a couple of albums. So he brought in Mark Brown, who was 19, and Wendy was 18. So they were very young, but they were very talented, and they were, as I say in the book, and all in from the very beginning. They really embraced Prince's idea of us against the world, the power of we, as I write in the book. And you can watch, and I hope I captured this by writing in a narrative form. You could see how that arc happened for him and took him to the very top of the everything. He was the centerpiece of pop culture in 1984 with Purple Rain.
Hmm. Absolutely. Um, I understand that you were a fan of Prince before you wrote the book,
Yeah, yeah.
and you, of course, did a lot of research for this book. What was something you learned about Prince from your studies that you found particularly interesting?
That's a good question. I, for me, it was just how much he prized that group of people. Once he built that circle, it was everything to him. It defined how he was. And he could be very, very tough on them and in many ways mean. And he had a very hard time having a social interaction with people. He was very, very shy. And again, trust issues from his childhood. His parents split when he was young. His father ended up throwing him out when he was 13, 14 because he was bringing girls back to the house. Father was very religious. And so I love the fact that he built in his mind and physically with the band this idea of Uptown. I call the first part of the book Uptown Rising. And he very much believed in his philosophies and he infused them in the music. He was never shy to do that. And I always knew that as a fan, as you mentioned, when I was in my 20s and I was in bands and we couldn't wait for the new Prince single to come out, the new Prince album and all the information we used to get from all the underground magazines like Uptown and find out what the B-sides are going to be or what the bootlegs were going to be. So I guess it was really just his incredible ability to separate that shy, very untrustworthy personality and allow people to come in and help him realize his music And I think that is reflected greatly in those records during that period. I'm not saying he lost it later, but I just don't think, as I put in the epilogue of the book, during these years he was becoming Prince. He was inventing it. He was inventing the concept and the mythos of it. And later on, he was already Prince. And you can
Mm.
only go through everything once for the first time, you know? And for all of us who grew up then, it was the first time that we never saw an artist like this. Honestly, I never did. You know, he was kind of like my Beatles.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned the B-sides, and I think I always thought one of the fascinating things about Prince was he often saved the best songs as the B-sides. I mean,
Yes.
Erotic City, 17 Days, I mean, Irresistible Bitch. It's like there's just so many. And in your research, and I guess from what, as a fan, what you've gathered, like, why do you think that was that he would? I mean, clearly this was a super prolific period where he was just seemed like everything he did was great, but why do you think he would put those songs as B-sides rather than the on the album?
Well, he was amazingly prolific.
Yeah.
And he just made so many songs. He didn't know what to do with them. He put them in the for many years we thought the apocryphal vault, but there really is a vault, and
Yeah.
uh, and uh, and the Prince Estate now is going back and finding that stuff, and thank goodness for that. And especially for my research, because those box sets for 1999 and Purple Rain and Sign of the Times were a huge aspect for me. And of course, the great work of Dwayne Tudall, who was also who assisted me a great deal on this book, who wrote wonderful books about Prince's sessions and how he did it. He was busting with so much creativity, and he did definitely feel, and I learned this too, he definitely was building worlds with these records. If something didn't fit on 1999, his double album from 1982, he would have to put it somewhere else, but it didn't feel like it fit there. Like a song called Purple Music, which we all knew about and heard about. We had never heard it until it came out on the box set a few years ago. And it would have fit nice on that record, but he thought the song Automatic would fit better. And we should probably point out once again to young readers or young listeners what a B-side is, everybody, is when you have a 45 or a single, there's always a second side that's not the single, right? For When Doves Cry, that's not the single. You mentioned 17 Days, which was on the other side, or God on the other side of Purple Rain, or Erotic City on the other side of Let's Go Crazy. And like you said, David, those songs sometimes would be better. And it's incredible. He was just so prolific during this period. It was so much fun to write about.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, you write in the book that Prince was quote restless. He was
Hmm.
restless creative force. It was a remarkable string of albums and singles during this period. Nearly every year he'd put out an album, and not to mention numerous side projects like The Time, Vanity Six, The Family, and he's got the Purple Rain movie. It was really just kind of unfathomable. I mean, clearly he had a insane work ethic, and he had a very intense drive. He was very disciplined. T Tell us a little bit what you think that came from, and also how the band responded to that kind of demanding approach.
Well, he's just focused in always. I
Mm.
just think he was only really ever happy when he was making music.
Mm.
Um, and so he just wanted to do it all the time. It's quite ironic that he died of a drug overdose, and of course that was prescribed to him from all the injuries that he had from jumping and dancing all those years on high heels. And he was a very slight man, and he had problems with his hips because he never did any drugs. I mean, the worst they did was drink a lot of coffee and eat a lot of chocolate to stay up. But he would do 10, 15, 20-hour sessions where, engineers are just dropping off like flies. And the band had to be there with him too, running through songs over and over again. I just think that, he was just built like that. He was almost like song or music in a human. And
Hmm.
unless he was making this music, he just didn't feel whole or connected to the universe because like again, he was so shy. So I think those people being around him allowed him to be that way. And they protected him. I write in the book about how he gets absorbed into the band. You could see it in the early performances, like on him, American Bandstand. He's protected by the band. And it's again quite ironic, like towards the end of his run with the Revolution, he sort of made the band so big, he bloated it out to 13, 14 players and dancers. He got lost in it. So he got lost in it as a tribe early, and then later on, when he was starting to lose his connection to them, he made it so big that it's like being in a city. The larger the city, the less chance you're going to run into the same people all the time. It's almost like he was building his own city as a protection. So I just think, he was just always on fire, as Lisa Coleman said, constantly on fire to create, especially during that period.
Mhm. Absolutely. Um, Yeah, so some members of the revolution were, unhappy with Prince's kind of unwillingness to give song credits or give them credit. I actually had the opportunity to interview Mark Brown, aka Brown Mark, Prince's bassist, the bassist in the revolution, about 5 years ago when he was doing press for his memoir, My Life in the Purple Kingdom, which he
Right.
referenced in the book.
Hmm.
While he was appreciative of the opportunity Prince gave him. I mean, he was literally like, 19 years old, as you said, and gets thrown into this. I think he was a bit resentful about, the fact that like Prince didn't really acknowledge his band, Brown Mark's band Maserati's contributions to the hit Kiss. So you of course talk about that in the book. What do you think? I guess this is another kind of psychology question, but what do you think was kind of behind kind of maybe Prince's unwillingness to share some songwriting credits, even though it was clear the Revolution members had some key contributions to these songs?
Well, a couple of things. So on the other side of that, whenever you would have a band like The Time, as you mentioned, Vanity Six or The Family, he would erroneously put in the credits that these people wrote the songs
Hmm.
because he was trying to create this myth that they are their own band, even though he played all the songs, wrote all the songs. Same with Sheila E. He would give her writing credit. And so for him, he felt like he didn't look at Prince as just a person. It was this thing that he built.
Hmm.
And so that guy had to be the songwriter and had to be the voice of all these songs. And I think everybody in the band knew this. It's just that when you're all in at the beginning and you say, okay, I'll do whatever I can to realize the music of this genius, after a while, you're like, hey, wait a minute, where's mine? And you got that with Andre Simone leaving and then Des Dickerson leaving, Gail Chapman before them. And then, of course, Wendy and Lisa famously, threatening to quit the band because, he wasn't it really was over money. They didn't even care about the credit. And he did give credit at times, like with Matt Fink, who wrote the keyboard line to Dirty Mind, and other people that he would put in there. But yeah, for the most part, it was just he would have these jam sessions, wood shedding, and he would go through these songs or these jam or these riffs or these bass lines, and then he would create music out of that. And he felt that that was his art. So, whether listen, I'm hard on him in that sense. I think he could have handled that better, but I keep impressing on everyone. This is a 22, 23-year-old man. Uh, he was famous from about 17, 18. He was thrown into he's not like Michael Jackson, who was, treated this way when he was 8, 9, 10 years old, but he was still very young. So he was maturing and growing as an artist in front of everybody, unfortunately, and in front of all these people who grew with him. As I mentioned, they were all teenagers. So, just like any group of people that meet in high school or college, there's going to be disagreements, there's going to be different things that go the other way. But as a business sense, it really it would have behooved him to give more credit where credit was due. And that's another reason why I wrote the book, because I think this is very important that this stuff comes out. I know it's in other books too. Like I said, Dwayne's research is brilliant. And I know my friend Andrea Swenson has written some great stuff. And I read all the Prince books to research this. So there are snippets of it. But this book completely encompasses everything the band members did to help him, realize this music.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I was curious, do you have from his Revolution era, do you have a favorite album?
Mm. It changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the day. I will say this though, maybe this could have answered your other question too. I think one of the things that was revelatory to me was Dirty Mind. I loved that period. I loved all the concerts that I watched and I write about in the book. I love the whole punk aesthetic of it. I loved that he was playing all these clubs like the Bottom Line and the Roxy. He was playing in Cleveland and Chicago, and he was out there with the band kicking it. And every night they went out there and they put together an incredible show of, like I said, every type of music. And he was really becoming one of the great performers of his era. during that period. So for a while, Dirty Mind was like my favorite. But getting back to when I was, these records came out, I love Around the World in a Day. I loved what I remember the day it came out, and just being bowled over by it. And ultimately, I always tell people I think that Sign of the Times is the best record made by anyone in the 1980s. I really do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dirty Mind's definitely probably a top three or four Prince record for me. I love that. It's just so fun and yeah,
And
like
unique. It
yeah,
just
unique.
sounds
It
like
really is
nothing
unique.
else. Yeah.
It's got that, like you said, like you wrote in the book. It was like a demo, and it's got that kind of stripped down, kind of raw but funky and tight feel. Yeah, very much influenced by the new wave at the time,
Yeah.
and but also doesn't really sound like anything else in at the time or in his catalog. So yeah, I love that record, and yeah. Sign of the Times. I think I saw where you posted on Instagram where you, like me, went to see the concert film at IMAX.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing. I had never seen it in full, so that was so cool to see it on IMAX. I was wondering what you thought of that, seeing it on the
Yeah,
big
so
screen.
yeah, once again, this is why I wrote the book. I mean, you're a
Mhm.
Prince fan and you never had a
Mhm.
chance to see it because it was never re-released. I got a European version of the DVD, but I saw that three times in the movies when it came out.
Oh
Because I
wow.
was right,
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
was like
yeah,
24 years old then, and I could
yeah,
go to
yeah,
the,
yeah,
and you were probably, 10 or
yeah,
8, not even on the
yeah,
planet. So
yeah.
my point is that it's great that, and it was so much fun to be in the building. I took my 22-year-old niece who read the manuscript when I was working on it. She's a singer-songwriter, and when we went, she was just completely floored because she had never seen Prince perform ever. Ever, maybe a little bit on YouTube and things like that, but seeing it at that size with that sound, just it was more fun to watch her reaction to it than because I've seen the thing 20 times, but it
Mhm.
was very unique and it sounded great. But it really moved me because having a book come out the same day I went to see it, and all these people, I figured there'd be 10 people in the theater because there was about 10 people when I saw it in 1987. It was about half packed, and everybody was singing the songs and cheering as if it was a concert. And this guy has been dead now for almost 10 years. So I just thought that was really sweet, and it buoyed my spirits for people who maybe want to read a book about Prince now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess as you said, one of the reasons he wrote this is for younger generations to learn about Prince and educate them on just how huge and influential he was and continues to be. So I guess finally, what do you hope to be the big takeaways from your book, and particularly from people who maybe aren't super versed on Prince?
But like you said, it's very important. I would say this in all the interviews, but it's true. Everybody knows who Elvis Presley is, even young kids. Everybody knows who the Beatles are. But Prince, not so much. But I think he belongs in that pantheon. And the reason why I even say that is twofold. Number one, of those three, all three of them had the number one single, the number one record, and the number one movie in America at the same time. That's three artists, and Prince is one of the three. And number two, like the Beatles, Prince wasn't just a pop star. He changed the paradigm of music. He changed how we look at music, how we look at black music, at white music, and new wave music, as you said, and soul music and funk music. He was in it of himself his own entity, and he kept changing all the time. When I think of Prince, I think of David Bowie. When I think of, that kind of thing, this constant changeling, this constant shapeshifter. And I think it's important for other generations to see that and understand it because music can get a little antiseptic these days. And it's not just me, the old fart, saying it. There's a lot of people that are younger who are sick of auto tune, sick of how many beats per minute a song has to be if it's released in the summer as opposed to like during the holidays. I mean, these things are algorithms, all these things that kind of suck the life out of music. Well, if you go back and listen to that Prince stuff, as Matt Fink said, there's always mistakes in there. There's always little things. There's always pitch issues or rhythm things because he kept it natural. And I think that continues to resonate today. And people go back and rediscover, or in the case, I hope, discover this music and the man who made it. They will be very surprised and happily surprised at how really great music sounds even today. I mean, this stuff still sounds fresh to me.
No. Oh, I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. I mean, yeah, maybe certain aspects people might say, "Oh, that sounds so 80s," but I think it was just so creative and he was really I think ahead of the curve and just the genre blending. There's a lot of discussion about that now, with, Post Malone and you know, country and rap coming together. But he really was one of the think first kind of mainstream huge artists to do it so
Yeah.
well
Yeah.
and have a unique sound at the same time. So
And
yeah.
and also, you make a great point. Two songs, his two biggest songs, When Doves Cry and Kiss, two number one hits.
Hmm.
Both of them didn't sound anything like what was going on in 1984 and 1986, respectively. And
Hmm.
so that's why today they sound fresh.
Hmm.
Those songs didn't sound like anything else, man. So he was on his own plane anyway. And so that's why it translates. And that's why people still listen to the Beatles now,
Hmm.
60 years after these records were out. And like I said, you discover this music and you'll be and there's so much of it now. With all the box sets out and extra, there's so much to choose from. It's really hard to believe that he's been gone 9 years and we're still getting some great, great music from him.
Yeah. Yeah. I would encourage everyone getting into Prince to, yeah, get at least, you don't have to buy them because they're can be expensive, but at least stream the box sets because
Yes.
you don't want to pass up the B sides. So
And the
that's
great,
just,
that's right. And the great thing
yeah.
about this, my niece Sydney did tell me she could not help stop putting the book down and listening to the music, putting the book
Mhm.
down and listening to the music. And that fills my heart with such joy because that's why I do it. That's why all of us music writers sit down to write books about this. They want to get people as jazzed as we are, about the artist or the music. And for people to be discovering and rediscovering this music, as I said earlier, David, it's the best gift you can give an author, really.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks so much, James. Yeah, everyone, the book is available now. Revolution,
There it is.
Prince, the band, the era. It's available where all books are sold. So make sure you get a copy and check it out. It's a fascinating read. Thanks again, James, for speaking with 360degreesound.com. And everyone, stay tuned to 360, where we continue to bring you music from all angles. Thanks, James. Take
Peace.
care. Bye.